Okay, you're very welcome back to the programme. Now, Wellness Wednesday, we're going to talk about a new Irish business which is helping to take the stress out of funeral arrangements by bringing the wishes of the deceased more clearly into picture. We have to talk about it because the old saying goes, there's only two guarantees in life: death and taxes. Neither are great fun. Let's be honest about that. Right, Áine Tuffy is manager of My Farewell Wishes. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And also in studio with me is Shaun Murphy of Inishowen Funeral Services. Hi, Shaun.
Thank you.
Right. I think often presenters, when they start talking about death, planning your death, funerals, the default position is we're not really good at talking about death. Do you think that's the case, Áine? Or do we really are so busy with life that we just don't have time to talk about death?
I think it can often depend on the age of the person. Younger people, I'm including myself in that, but younger people don't...
Are you including me and Shaun?
Well, I think I know Sean's the same age as me because I went to school with him.
That's okay then.
But yeah, I think people of our age don't necessarily want to talk about it because it feels like it's so far in the future for us. But yet our parents are often people who want to talk about that, who are organised and who want to make their wishes known and just plan ahead.
But in other areas of life, like say, for instance, organ donation, right? You know, we're challenged to think about that regardless of what age we are, because life is fleeting and we never know what might happen, or even preparing a will. But we're not great at either of that, are we? So maybe we aren't really too prepared to sort of contemplate our passing.
It can be a tough subject to think about, and as you said, it's something that's guaranteed to happen to all of us. But we like to think that we'll go off in our sleep when we're well into our 80s, and that we don't want to have to think about something like that.
Yeah. Okay. What's your view, Shaun?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. What this My Farewell Wishes is. You see a lot of Highlands with families. What did Mammy want? And fleece, you can have your wishes there and writing. And it's a lot easier for the funeral director on my behalf that we know what they want.
Yeah.
Whereas you can have different scenarios. Families have nobody belonging to them. They want to know their wishes are going to be carried forward. I think it's a way forward.
Yeah, because in that moment, if there's a number of siblings, people have their own different relationships, people have their own way of grieving, and people have their own interpretation of the wishes of a deceased person.
Yes, that's correct, yeah. A lot of different scenarios. Like you could have a family with maybe somebody with special needs, and the family has nobody else to look after their wishes, and they know when their time's gone that there'll be somebody to look after their siblings as well as everything else.
Yeah, and it settles, and as you say, there's no end of scenarios. Another one could be a partner.
Yes.
Their view could be at odds with a brother or sister or mum or dad.
Exactly.
And I don't think any of us would want to leave back behind us that uncertainty.
Yes.
When people are in the throes of grief at the same time as well.
Correct, yeah.
Right, tell us how this works then, Áine.
So My Farewell Wishes was set up. We started looking into this 2 years ago. There was a UK-based company in the Irish market that was more towards prepaying for the funeral. But after Brexit, they pulled out of the Irish market. They still will honour plans that have been taken out, but they weren't taking on new customers. So I actually work for a funeral director ourselves, and we have a service company where we provide different consultancy services to funeral directors. And several of them came to us and asked us, what can we do now? Where can we go? Is there anything else? So we decided to investigate setting this up. So it took 2 years to investigate and to set up, and €100,000 worth of investment in legal fees, etc., just to set up the trust fund. So My Farewell Wishes works. We want to focus though on the wishes rather than the payment, because that's really where we think a lot of people are more interested in. They have...
This country's a little bit more complicated. Like someone might have a credit union loan, for an example, and I think most credit unions have... they have some contribution to or whatever. I'm just trying to give examples. I think just this market, it just is, people, I don't know if we're really prepared to start prepaying for our funerals. Maybe that's what your research found.
Certain people now would like to put away some money towards it, but we definitely found that the wishes was what was more important to people, making sure that their wishes were carried out and to take some of the burden off their families when the time comes. There's pre-planning and then there's at need when someone has passed away. And we estimate that in the first meeting with the funeral director, there can be up to 50 questions. And Shaun would agree with that.
And we'll get into that, but I presume what this does is post someone's passing, rather than two other parties that might have different points of view. So there's a third voice in there, and that is the voice of the deceased. Now, obviously, these wishes, I presume, aren't legally binding, but they're part of that conversation now, even after their passing, which I think is really critical in resolving any, not necessarily conflict, but any disagreement or conflict of opinion.
That's it, and it just makes it a little bit easier for people as well, for a family. If they didn't know what Mammy or Daddy would have wanted, well, at least it's written down here. It's what they would like, because most people organising a funeral, their main goal is to just make sure that it's what they would have wanted.
Yeah.
So at least if you know what they wanted, it just takes a wee bit of that burden off them.
I presume, Shaun, for the most part, not for the most part, there are different types of people. There are people that maybe just throw all of the, well, what normally happens, what do you think we should do, and I hate to use the word routine, but you know what I mean. There is a format there, and then you will meet, then you will engage with others who've got, that's completely thrown out. They've got their whole idea, and they expect you to be able to sort of comply with and make sure that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, you could find different scenarios, and some can be very challenging. But as I say again, my farewell wishes, if that's all wrote down and set in stone, it's a lot easier for us to organise funerals, and I think it's a better way forward.
Right, so how does it work then? Say it was I was going to engage with the service. So who do I meet? You? Do I meet Shaun?
You can meet either. You can get in touch with Shaun or ourselves. We will find then a funeral director in your local area, and we will give you the form. We have worked for a long time on the form.
Is that there? Is it?
Yeah.
You throw that over. No, you're going to hand me just as we were going on air, but we were short on time. But go ahead.
You're okay.
Áine.
My boss would often say when he's talking about it, there was blood, sweat and tears, and all the tears were mine. We wrote and we rewrote the form so many times just to try and educate people about their options and what's available. Some people, as you say, and especially if you don't know what a person wanted, or if you don't have much time, as is in the case of Irish funerals, you tend to go with the default, the familiar. But if someone wants something different, then they can read through all their options of everything that can be done,
So typically, is it whether someone wants to be buried or cremated? Is it whether they want to be buried beside which partner or whatever it might be? Do you know what I mean? Is that the kind of stuff, the questions that are in there? What else are typical tough questions?
We would ask the bigger questions first, the main questions, so burial or cremation, ceremony or no ceremony. The main questions like that, and then we'd go into you can go right down into the nitty-gritty of what you'd like to have done with your ashes, if you'd like to leave mementos of a fingerprint impression. Some people have told us, have written their own eulogies. Some people have specified what they'd like to have done with their ashes after cremation. There was one lady who would like them scattered while a certain song is playing. You can get more creative ahead of time rather than just falling back on default.
Like this personal wishes thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to pick it out in case it frames it, because there's a lot of details in there, but it's down to flowers. Would you like people to send flowers? Would you like to choose the exact type of coffin? So do I choose it now or let my family decide? Would I like a funeral notice on? Because some people are more private than others, aren't they? Even where would you like to be published? Would you like a photo to be used? Do you want symbols of any hobbies or interests that you would like to have incorporated into your funeral? We do that, but for some people they might go, well, that's not exactly the kind of send-off that I would like. Would you like it live streamed? It really gets in. Now I'm literally just on one page here. It really gets into it. This is a full review of what someone might want. Yeah,
we have two different options then of forms. I think you're looking at the long form there, and we have sometimes.
I'm very studious.
Sometimes people then
or get the
just
short
think,
form out.
yeah. Sometimes people think that's too many questions, and it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
So we created the short form for people who just want to record their basic wishes, or who want to have a meeting with the funeral director and just jot it down there.
There's still quite a bit in there as well. Okay, so it's as deep because the long form goes into things like whether you want bagpipes or release of doves or something that looks like them. Do you know what I mean? That type of stuff. The short form is more the probably the key questions.
Yeah.
So then I fill this all out with you or an undertaker.
Whichever you want, it's up to you. And then we do two different services. So the registration of wishes is €65 the charge for that, and we keep your wishes on our database. We'll send you a copy. You nominate a representative, so that's the person that you expect will be organising your funeral, and a funeral director if you'd like to nominate one. And each of those will get a copy of your wishes. Then if you want to pay towards the cost of your funeral, we have a trust fund, and we're still actively signing up funeral directors in Donegal. We have 4 different partners at the minute in Donegal. So you can pay towards the cost of your funeral if you wish, and that's whatever amount.
How is this being received? Because maybe traditionalists might think, well, that's not really. They kind of like that. I mean, not like it, but they like maybe that first conversation going through this. They feel that's part of the connection that they have. Are you getting that, or I mean, obviously you're still signing undertakers up, but what kind of feedback are you getting from them?
The feedback is great, actually, because you can still, it's not like Shaun would agree with that. You don't just go, here's the form, I know what's happening.
Yeah.
If undertakers have a great way with people, and they'll still sit down and they'll have the form in front of them, and they'll be able to go through and say, well, it says here that
it's
guidance would like this.
Yeah. And it's real strong guidance, isn't it? Because it's the person's words themselves and their wishes. I hate to be negative, right? But it's just the type of question that jumps into my mind. I wish you every success with this, okay? But let's just say, for instance, I fill it out and live for another 25 years, but you decide you want to wind down the company. What happens in that regard? Have you any sort of contingency for that?
Well, the wishes are registered with, yourself, your representative, and your funeral director will always have a copy of that. And even in the case that the funeral director may go under, we've written all that into the terms and conditions.
I cannot believe she just said the funeral director might go under. But anyway, go on.
Oh, there are endless jokes in this work. Don't put me off.
No, go on.
So we've written all that into the terms and conditions for all those. We've tried to think of every possibility that might happen, so that everyone will still have a copy of your wishes. Yeah. If you have paid towards the cost of your funeral, that is held by a trust fund. So
exactly, which is great. Now, you see, this is not. And I think you kind of maybe mentioned this a little earlier on, Áine. Say, for instance, someone's in their 30s or 40s or 50s. This is advisable. But I know that people, even in really good health, maybe when they're heading towards their late 70s, or they start worrying about things like this, even though it's not imminent, and we hope it's not, right? But I think it's a different sort of maybe a concern, because they start worrying about, well, I don't want to put stress on my family, or I think for the living, that this would be a great peace of mind. Does that make sense, Shaun? Do you get where I'm coming from?
100%,
and it could be at any age, but I'm thinking back to my dad, and it was thankfully long before he passed away, right? But I know certain things were sort of, from our conversations over a pint, was starting to play in his mind a little bit, that there was maybe a reality dawning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I had clients before, and until they had their wishes done, it was peace of mind for them. Yeah, because they were worrying, well, they might change my plans, and I wanted it set in writing, and it was just the relief that person got. Was,
I can park that now and live. I can live hopefully another 20 years, but I don't have to worry about that. And she says that was just a relief off my shoulders. Yeah, and it's just.
What do you think the uptake will be? The uptake has been very strong.
Oh, you're already going. You're putting it out there already.
So we've been processing plans since November. We started off slowly just to get all our
soft
procedures
launch, as they call it,
exactly, to get everything in place and make sure that when the madness happens, that we're ready for it. But there has been a great uptake in it, I have to say. Now, we're very, very happy with it. And even with our own funeral directors, once people know that you offer this service and that it's available, it starts the conversation.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I think today'd be a good day for me to fill this out. Tomorrow I'll probably go, no, I'm not talking about that. Do you know?
Exactly.
That's just the way it is. But if people get the forms when they feel in the mood,
exactly,
they can. And would you suggest people might fill this out at home and then present it to their undertaker, or contact you? Is that how you expect it to work?
Yeah, exactly. You can either contact us or a funeral director directly, and then have the form, have a read over the pack at home. And then the person can decide if they want to fill it out with the funeral director, or they can fill it out themselves at home if they want to get a bit more creative. But it's definitely something that people can take their time over. And I know Shaun was saying about the peace of mind that people get from planning. And I've done a few plans with people either over the phone or in person. And there's a sigh. They do this
Yeah.
Just a sigh of relief.
Well, the anticipation of most things is worse than the actual thing itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is what they say. And you said about this is not necessarily the primary focus about paying for it in advance, but if people want to do that, they can do so, and the money is secure so that is an expense that they're not leaving behind them.
Exactly. They can get an estimate for the cost of the wishes that they have detailed. And then pay towards it. They choose an amount that they pay. We're different to the sort of the insurance providers, or what you might see in some of the daytime television, the UK-based providers, where maybe if you stop paying, that your money is gone.
And I think also really that's designed for get you in a casket, cremation, or you know what I mean. I don't think that affords you the personalisation of your last.
Yeah.
Your last ride, I suppose you could call it. All right, okay. How do people get more information?
So they can check out our website, myfarewellwishes.ie. They can check out then, we have our partners on it. So we have Shaun, Inishowen Funeral Services. We have McAteers in Fanad. We have Terence McClintock in Convoy. And we have Andrew Gallagher in Mount Charles at the minute. And we have a few other Donegal funeral directors interested in taking up our service.
And again, this will kind of fill out organically, because you might have someone who contacts their undertaker and asks, do you have this facility? And then they go around, well, Shaun has it, I better provide that option too. That's kind of how the market responds, you would hope, wouldn't
exactly,
you? Yeah, okay. It's really very interesting. How do people get their hands on this booklet?
So if they get in touch with us via our website or our Facebook page, we're on all the social medias as well, and we'll get brochures or packs, whatever, sent out to them and get them in touch with their nearest partner funeral director.
And it's not as scary to hold as I thought it might be. I already know my wishes and they are simple. I'm not sure what I want, or I want to know more, or have detailed wishes. Those are I think you're covering all bases there, and then you take people through that process. Right. So are we getting better about talking about death? Or, as I say, I'll finish with the question we started. Maybe we're already quite comfortable about it.
Yeah, I think the younger generation are more willing to talk about it.
And they're more curious too, is what I find. They'll ask questions that their parents wouldn't have asked. They'll ask more. They want to know what happens maybe behind the scenes, or how things happen, rather than maybe the generation before that were afraid. Oh, don't talk about that. They didn't want to talk about the finer details of what happens. But younger people are much more interested, and that's one route that we would like to go down next, is to educate people on all aspects of funerals and what's available in a tasteful way too, though.
Okay. And there's no need for any red flag element to this, is there, just in case someone is planning their passing?
We do have a code of conduct in the funeral director terms and conditions that says, if you feel that there's a person that maybe there's just something not adding up here, that a person maybe isn't
it's not done for
in
exactly
the best place, that just to be very gentle with them.
Brilliant. Okay, that's brilliant. Sorry for asking that. Well, you know yourself.
Fine.
I just think it's important. Anything else either of you want to add?
No.
I think we've covered it all, didn't we?
I think we're good, yeah.
All right. Áine Tuffy, manager of My Farewell Wishes, and Shaun Murphy of Inishowen Funeral Services. Both of you, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been an interesting conversation. All right. We'll be back with more shortly.